Hey guys, it's Dan. Welcome back. With you here with another unboxing video in quotes. This is the last of these that I'll do because this is the only other kit that I have where the sprues are almost entirely intact. But it's another instance like the last video where I purchased the box a long time ago, took the models out of the box, but didn't really do anything with them and threw the box out, which is a real shame because I'd mentioned in the previous video that I've been trying to recollect boxes for their box art, and the Perry Miniatures box art is probably among the best in the market right now in terms of multi-part plastic, historical miniatures, and the box art for this Men-at-Arms kit is no exception to that. So real shame that I threw that box out, but I wanted to do this video kind of for public awareness, because while some of these sprues have some pieces missing that I'll go over, if you look at them in conjunction, all the bits are there, or almost all the bits are there. And unlike the last unboxing videos that I've done, I have completed painted models that are from this kit, a different box, but it's the same kit that I thought might be helpful in influencing any potential purchasing decisions here. Before I get into that, just a quick side note, I want to thank, I have a lot of new subscribers that have joined on. Welcome. Since, in particular, the two Wargames Atlantic unboxing videos that I put out. I'm very grateful. And in fact, due to the success of those videos, I actually reached out to Wargames Atlantic, not for any free content, again, because I'm nobody, but rather it was to ask if there's any way I could get the ability to purchase some of their Age of Chivalry boxes in advance of the widespread release so that I could do some review videos. And they were extremely gracious, very kind and quick in their response. Where basically they said they don't have them yet, but they did end up actually sending me some free stuff to review, which I'm absolutely blown away by. So I'll have some sponsored Wargames Atlantic review content coming soon that are words I never thought I'd be saying on this small and humble channel of mine. So look out for those. You may have also noticed, anybody who's subscribed may have noticed that there's been kind of a branding change of the video titles of all the videos I've put out so far. My wife, actually, who's much smarter than me, had chimed in and suggested a different title. So everything was kind of under like the umbrella of Hobby and Chill, because originally the direction for those videos was just going to be sort of like dedicated ramble content to have on in the background while you're painting. That's something that I like. I thought maybe it would be helpful for others. But we now have like 3 distinct types of videos. There's ramble content, there's now these unboxing videos, and there are how-to videos. So I've rebranded all those videos with different video titles to kind of fall in line with that new direction for the channel. So yeah, lots of exciting stuff coming up. I've got some stuff on my painting desk that I want to get completed that's on near completion. So I'll be putting out some painting videos on that stuff too in advance of, as I mentioned, some of these new Wargames Atlantic kits that are going to be coming in for unboxing in the coming week or so. So lots going on, very exciting times for me. But in the meantime, let's talk about Perry Miniatures and their mounted Men-at-Arms box. So Perry Miniatures, for those that don't know, the Perry brothers used to, I don't know if it was commission work that they did or if they actually worked for Games Workshop, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, they did a lot of work for Games Workshop. A lot of the like 6th edition Empire metal range is the Perry Miniatures, among, I think, some of the best Empire models they've ever put out. And then also the entire Lord of the Rings range was done by the Perry brothers. That range, if no one's ever dealt with it, or if you've not dealt with it, they're smaller. It's 25 millimeter. But those models, I think, are among the best to this day that Games Workshop has ever produced. And I think they've done commission work. Maybe it was Foundry. They did work for other companies as well. But they then went on to found their own miniature company and produce a lot of really beautiful multi-part plastic kits, a lot of Napoleonics, nothing in the Ancients range yet, but the War of the Roses. And they have 5 boxes out for those. I have had and have painted and built from all 5 of those sets, which is very interesting. It was very interesting for me as alternative Warhammer Empire sculpts. So this is their mounted Men-at-Arms. They have a mounted light cavalry box in the same range as a bows and bills set, which is infantry with pole arms and with longbows. And then mercenaries box, which I've at least made mention of in prior videos. And then they also have a foot knight box. So I think at some point, again, I don't have unfinished or untouched sprues from those sets, but I do have some sprues, and I have a lot of painted completed models from those sets that maybe we'll do some, I don't know if we call them showcase or what, videos in the future. Give you some ideas of those sets. So in the meantime, again, this is the mounted Men-at-Arms sprue. It comes with 12 models, and it does come with the green Renedra bases, if that's something that you're into. The box art as well, it is, as I mentioned, it's beautiful, has really good like instructional stuff on the back. The box comes with a pamphlet, as all Perry Miniatures boxes do, that gives some historical context for the models that are inside of the box. And also have, if you're into this kind of thing, as I am, paper banners that could be used, cut out, and affixed to these models, if that's something that you would like to do. So chock full of content as far as I'm concerned. Unlike the previous boxes that we've looked at, there are two sprue types. There's no command sprue, but there is the mounted rider sprue, which we'll take a look at separately. And then there's this cavalry sprue. So let's look at the cavalry sprue real quick, just because it's simple. But again, 12 models. So there are 3 of the mounted riders sprues with 4 models apiece. And then there are 4 of the horse sprues, cavalry sprue, horse sprue, with 3 models apiece. So I can just look at one of these because those are all the same. But Perry Miniatures for the longest time was the top dog as far as I'm concerned with regard to quality. The for those that aren't used to historical miniatures, the scale is smaller than you might be used to, especially if you're only dealing with like Warhammer Fantasy models otherwise. But these, until Victrix like put out their Viking kit, I mentioned that was kind of a turning point for them as a company. War Games Atlantic is a newer company, but has been consistently putting out really high quality stuff. For a long time, though, Perry Miniatures was it. It was the company that was putting out really beautiful, I mean, just look at some of the detail, like on these horse heads in particular, the bridles. The detail is extremely crisp, very detailed. You only get shallow kind of places on things like this, like on the mane, but even that's relative as far as I'm concerned. This is really just excellent. And this horse sprue, I believe, is used in like a lot of their boxes, because you can see it's very dynamic poses. Lots of horse head options. There's 4 horse heads to 3 horses. The knight sprue itself, the mounted Men-at-Arms sprue, has alternative heads as well that you could use if you wanted some like armored horse heads. So just a huge amount of variety. These do match, so like this one goes to this one goes to this one, and this one goes to this one. So 2-part horses. Again, if you've built Games Workshop horses before, then you'll recognize this as well. And yeah, I just think that this quality is absolutely fantastic. And as I mentioned, scale is maybe the only thing that's of concern, and that's something that we'll take a look at a little bit later at some of the completed models that I have. So the mounted Men-at-Arms sprue, again, this will be a little bit different where that these are all identical, but you can see I've sort of harvested some bits. The Fireforged Knights, I used the lance arms from this set, so that's why you see that the lance arms are missing on some, but I'm looking for which one is most complete here, and it's probably this one, but I can kind of sub in the other sprues if there's a piece missing that we want to take a look at. So just at a high level here, the layout, I mentioned there's 4 models per sprue, and the left arms and all of these are molded in, just like we saw on the Foot Knight kit for the War Games Atlantic box. And this differs actually from the Perry Foot Knights, because those torsos don't have any left arms attached. There's one thing that may bother some people. It's historically correct, but it may bother you, which is that there are no shields included in this box. Now, at this point in history, armor plating was so good that shields were actually more of a nuisance than anything, and a lot of the knightly class Men-at-Arms would have been fighting with like pole arms, because that's the only thing you could really use to get through the plate armor of your opponent. So fighting with like a sword and shield was not common in this era. So that's maybe my only critique of these sculpted left arms, is that they were sculpted in such a way that suggests you should be affixing a shield, but you can't unless you purchase the shield separately. I've actually done that with my painted versions that I'll show you in just a little bit, but that's just something to be aware of, that there's no shield in these sets. Perry Miniatures, I mean, lots of other companies produce shields. Fireforge Games produces shields. You could 3D print some shields. But I think I used the Fireforge shields from their Knight box. I stole some Lance arms, gave them to the Fireforge Knights, stole some shields, gave them to my Men-at-Arms. But you can see, just like with the horses, the quality here is just fantastic. Lots of pose variety. There's actually 2 missing arms up here, but you can see it's more of the same. They give you a lot of variety in terms of like German armor, Italian armor. They have plate armor that has like part of the tunic coming over it in case you've got a tunicked torso. Like some of these, if I take a closer look here, you can see like this guy has a tunic over the armor, which is cool if you want to paint some livery, something like that. But they had different styles of armor as well. So yeah, just really well-researched, fantastic set. And the Perry brothers are renowned for that, I think, in the research that goes into their sets, especially, again, I don't really dabble with Napoleonics, but as I understand it, their kits on that side are very accurate as well. In addition to the sculpted left arms here, which, again, some might find to be a bit of a nuisance, you'll notice that there's these pieces here for barding. And there is enough barding, because it's kind of weird looking at it out of context, but these go together. There's like a separate, these here and these here all form up to be a piece that sculpts around the horse bodies. So what it results in, you have enough pieces to give everybody barding if you so choose. There's a couple points on it though that I'd like to make. The one is that you can see that there's only actually 2 styles. So 4 horses worth of barding, but there's only 2 different styles. So if that's something that bothers you, that's just something to be aware of. The other thing that and I'll show you on some finished models kind of where the issues came in, is that I found these pieces to be extremely fiddly. Like not so much these. This one had more an issue with gaps that would be created when you were putting it together. But this one, you can see it's 4 pieces to 1 barding that goes onto a horse. So same issue potentially with gaps in the middle, but also like with this one, there's 2 straps that are supposed to meet up in the front. And it was just difficult to do. And even me, having put together probably a couple hundred multi-part plastic kits over my career, I found it kind of tricky to deal with. So it's just, again, something to be aware of. But as I mentioned, in terms of quality, this is really top notch. Lots of lance arms. Again, I've removed some down here. But if I pull in one of these other sprues, you'll see at least, well, maybe not, I think it's the same example, but some of these are actually, it's like the same arm, essentially, just same kind of pose. You've got some in a kind of couched lance pose, like this one here, and then some other ones that are more open-armed. But that's the way that they've designed it, is such that these arms here can be joined up with these hands, which I thought was a very clever system that they've come up with, where it, there you go. So you can see like the gloved hand here is actually, it's flat on the back. So it attaches in to these pieces of armor here. You can see it there. And that's actually something I've not seen in any other kits outside of the Perry brothers. So it makes for, I think, very dynamic, gives you a lot of options, but also a very convincing weapon hand. So you don't have any issue with, like, you know, Lego hands holding weapons or things like that. So yeah, lots of variety. The only, again, other critique maybe I would have leveled at this kit is that there are 5 hand weapon options. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 4 models, so that doesn't give a ton of variety. So if you're looking for lots of like weapon variety, you'll have to find that elsewhere. But this kit, as I'll show you in a moment, actually kit bashes very well with their other boxes. So what I've done actually, like with my Men-at-Arms here, and I guess I'll post some pictures as well so you can see this not from an above view, is I've done 2 things. I've gotten shields for them, and these, as I mentioned, are from the Fireforge box, and I've actually kit bashed this with the Foot Knights box. So the Foot Knights come with hand weapon arms, again, no shields, but also pole arms. So lots of different pole arms, lots of different varieties. And because the scale is all the same, yeah, I mean, pretty seamlessly, I was able to attach some pole arms onto these guys, which again, whether historically accurate or not, whether anybody would be riding around with a pole arm like this. I did this just because I do fantasy wargaming, so it was a lot of fun to put together. But again, I had mentioned kind of the fiddliness of this kit, trying to get the two pieces of this barding here to attach in the front, and then the straps going up around it like that was difficult. It just took some doing, and some of the, let me see if I can find a good example of it. Yeah, this is probably the best one in terms of the barding gluing together on the back. It wants to separate. But as I've said before, it just takes a little bit of work and concentration, but it can be done. And again, my bigger critique than the difficulty of assembly, it has more to do with the lack of variety. In the end, you're only going to have two different types of barding. But you can see the heads that come with it, I think, are pretty cool. You can use some of them with the helmeted heads, some of them without. Some of them have feathers, things like that, which give you some visual interest. And then, of course, the lances, like I did here, could be used for a standard without any issue. And then this is a non-Perry Miniatures model that I put on. This is like a metal, I don't know if it's foundry or what, but that it was able to go onto this Perry horse very easily. So same thing though, I just wanted to really quickly bring out their mounted light cavalry box, because the horses are the same, and the riders actually are similar. There's more tunic bodies, and you can see that they come with boots, but that's really not the purpose of this video. It's just to show you that it's the same cavalry, but it gives you an idea of what it would look like without the barding, because you could very easily, these are mounted crossbowmen that I've made here, but you could very easily do the mounted men-at-arms set without barding, and they're going to look pretty close to this. So I think it's a diverse kit in terms of options. I would say that diversity is kind of conditioned on having other Perry Miniatures kits that you can swap in weapons on, that you can get shields from, things like that. But it is a nice kind of, I don't want to call it a blank slate, but it's a nice kit for potentially putting together with other sets. There's two other things I wanted to show you real quick, just before we wrap things up here. One, again, I mentioned it comes with Denager bases. I get these MDF bases on eBay for very cheap, just big old stacks of them in a 25 by 50 millimeter rectangle. That's why you see some of them with those kinds of bases. But I just wanted to make mention that it does not come with these bases. It comes with the Green Denager bases, as I mentioned at the beginning. But in terms of scale, the way that these scale up, I wanted to show you one of my Fireforge guys. You can see it's very close in scale to the Fireforge, which by extension, because we know that the Fireforge is very close in scale to the Wargames Atlantic stuff, means that the Wargames Atlantic and Perry Miniatures stuff will be very close in size. So you can see the Perry I mentioned at the outset was smaller, so they're on the smaller size, but the scale is approximately correct, approximately the same. Now, where that falls apart is with Games Workshop products. So this is actually the only Games Workshop horse that I have in my collection still. I've been phasing out a lot of my Games Workshop stuff over the last couple of years, but this is the only horse that I could find. And you can see here that if you were going to say take a Empire horse, like maybe the old 90s cavalry model, and try to blend in these Perry Miniatures ones, the Perry ones look small by comparison. Now the truth is, the Perry Miniatures one is correct. It's this one that's just way too big for the rider. But you can see that if you're trying to blend them together, you're going to have, I think, a difficult time achieving that. You're better off, if you want to get into Perry Miniatures, to do, as I've said at the beginning, like an alternate Empire army. You're better off doing all Perry Miniatures rather than trying to blend in some of your Empire stuff, unless it's some of the older metal stuff. But the plastics certainly are going to be much too large in scale to be able to pull that off. So one more thing just to be aware of, But yeah, again, Perry Miniatures, I think a very good kit and part of a good range of kits from their War of the Roses stuff worth checking out. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning, lots of fun stuff on the horizon. And so, grateful to you all. Appreciate you stopping by. And in the meantime, happy gaming.